I still remember the day I made that promise as clearly as if it were yesterday. We were sitting on the edge of the old pier, the sun dipping low behind the horizon, casting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The water lapped gently against the wooden posts, a soothing rhythm that seemed to echo the beat of my heart. I looked into his eyes and spoke the words with a conviction I meant to hold on to forever. I promise you, I will never let us fall apart. No matter what comes, I'll be here. His smile was soft, tinged with hope, and in that moment I believed it. I believed in us, in the strength of that promise, in the power of love to conquer whatever challenges lay ahead. But promises are fragile things. They are woven from hope and intention, but they can unravel with the slightest misstep. Life began to move in ways we didn't expect. The pressures crept in, work stress, family expectations, the exhaustion that comes from trying to be everything to everyone. Slowly, the bright colors of our relationship began to fade into muted tones. I found myself caught in the middle, torn between the demands of the world and the promise I made on that pier. The weight of that promise pressed down on me, heavier with each passing day. I tried to hold on, to be the person I vowed to be, but inside, doubts began to whisper. Was I strong enough? Was love alone enough to carry us through? The first cracks appeared in the small things: a forgotten call, a missed date, words spoken too harshly in frustration. Each slip chipped away at the foundation we built so carefully. I remember the night I broke the promise. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no shouting or tears. It was a quiet surrender, a failure to show up when it mattered most. I was exhausted, overwhelmed by the chaos of my own life, and instead of reaching out, I pulled away. I closed myself off, thinking I was protecting us both. But in that silence, the promise shattered. I reached out, trying to understand, trying to hold on to what was left, but I was too far gone, trapped in a storm of my own making. The guilt consumed me. I felt like I had betrayed not just him, but the part of myself that believed in love's promise. The days that followed were filled with regret and attempts to make amends. I apologized, promised to do better, but the damage was done. Trust, once fractured, is hard to repair. I wrestled with my own shortcomings. Why had I failed? Was it because I wasn't enough, or because life had simply overwhelmed me? The answers were elusive, tangled in fear and shame. Yet amidst the darkness, there was a flicker of hope. He didn't give up immediately. There was grace in his patience, a willingness to see beyond the broken moments to the love still there. Together, we began the difficult work of healing. It required honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to confront painful truths. I learned that keeping a promise is not about perfection but persistence. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. We rebuilt slowly, with new promises made in the light of our struggles, promises to communicate, to forgive, and to hold space for each other's imperfections. Through this journey, I discovered more about myself than I ever expected, about the limits of love, the importance of self-care, and the strength found in humility. The promise I broke became a turning point, not the end, but a beginning. It taught me that love is messy and complicated, filled with failures and triumphs, and that the most important promise is the one we make to ourselves: to keep trying, to keep loving, and to keep growing. The days after that night were heavy with silence and unanswered questions. I felt like I was living in a fog, moving through each moment with a sense of detachment, as if my body was there but my spirit was elsewhere. The promise I had made, the vow to never let us fall apart, felt like a distant echo, growing fainter with every passing day. I could see the pain in his eyes, the way he tried to hold on to the fragments of what we once had, but even his strength was beginning to waver. Every interaction was laden with tension, the unspoken weight of disappointment hanging between us like a thick fog. I longed to reach out, to bridge the growing gap, but the fear of rejection held me back. I was terrified that my words wouldn't be enough to mend the cracks I had caused. So instead, I stayed silent, hoping that somehow time would heal what I had broken. Time, I learned, is not a healer on its own. It is what you do with time that matters. I started to reflect deeply on my actions, my fears, and my failures. I realized that breaking a promise is not just about a single moment of weakness. It is about the gradual erosion of trust, the missed chances to communicate, and the avoidance of vulnerability. I'd been so focused on surviving my own struggles that I forgot the promise I made to be present, to be accountable, to be loving. The guilt was crushing. I felt like I was drowning in it, unable to breathe or find my way back. There were nights when tears would come unbidden, the raw ache of regret pouring out in silent sobs. I kept asking myself if I was beyond repair, if I was someone who could ever deserve forgiveness. It was during these dark moments that I found the courage to seek help. I reached out to a counselor, someone who helped me unpack the tangled emotions that had been building inside. In those sessions, I confronted my fears and learned to forgive myself. I realized that holding on to guilt was only prolonging the pain for both of us. Slowly, I began to open up to him again. I shared my struggles, my fears, and my deep regret for breaking the promise that meant so much. I listened to his hurt, his disappointment, and his hopes for us. The conversations were difficult, filled with tears and sometimes anger, but they were necessary. Each honest word was a step toward healing. We made new promises, not ones born out of naive hope, but ones grounded in reality and commitment. Promises to be transparent with each other, to communicate openly even when it's hard, and to support each other through life's challenges. It wasn't easy. Trust once broken takes time to rebuild. There were setbacks, moments when old wounds flared up and doubts crept in. But through patience and perseverance, we began to piece our relationship back together. I learned that love isn't about being perfect, it's about being willing to face your imperfections together. It's about showing up even when you're scared or tired and choosing each other every day. The promise I broke became a powerful lesson in humility and grace. It taught me the value of commitment beyond words and the importance of accountability in love. Looking back, I see that night not just as a failure, but as a turning point, a moment that forced me to grow and to understand the true meaning of love and promises. Today, our bond is stronger, not because the promise was never broken, but because we faced the break honestly and chose to heal together. The promise I broke no longer defines me. Instead, it reminds me of the strength we found in forgiveness and the beauty of love that endures despite mistakes. The journey toward healing wasn't linear. Some days, I woke up feeling hopeful, believing in our renewed commitment and the possibility of a future rebuilt from the ruins of our broken promise. Other days, the weight of what had happened pressed down on me, and doubts whispered cruel questions. Was it too late? Had the damage already been done beyond repair? I remember one afternoon in particular, a turning point in our healing process. We sat together in the quiet corner of a small cafe, the world bustling around us but the space between us still fragile. I looked at him and saw the pain lingering behind his eyes, the cautious hope mingling with hesitation. I took a deep breath and said, I don't want to lose us. I know I broke my promise, but I'm here now. I want to make things right. He reached for my hand, a small gesture filled with meaning. I want that too, but it's going to take time. That moment was a powerful reminder that healing is a shared journey. It requires patience, understanding, and the willingness to be vulnerable, not just once, but every day. I started to build new rituals, small acts of kindness and honesty that strengthened our connection. Morning texts to check in, shared meals without distractions, open conversations about fears and dreams. Each moment was a thread weaving us closer together. I also learned the importance of self-compassion. I was hard on myself for breaking the promise, but through therapy and reflection, I began to forgive myself. I realized that growth comes from mistakes and that being human means falling sometimes and rising stronger. The promise I broke became a catalyst for deeper introspection. I examined my fears, my insecurities, and the patterns that had led to the fracture. Understanding myself better allowed me to communicate more openly and authentically. As trust slowly returned, we rediscovered the love that had drawn us together. It was different now, not naive or idealized, but grounded in reality and tempered by experience. We celebrated the small victories, a shared laugh after a tense conversation, a spontaneous date night, the feeling of being truly seen and accepted. Of course, challenges remained. Old wounds would surface unexpectedly, and fears would creep in. But by then, we had tools and a foundation of trust to navigate the rough patches. Looking back, I see that the broken promise was not the end of our story, but a painful but necessary chapter in it. It taught me the true meaning of commitment, not perfection, but persistence. Not a guarantee, but a choice renewed every day. I am grateful for the lessons learned, the humility to admit my mistakes, the courage to seek forgiveness, and the strength to keep loving despite fear. Today, the promise I once broke is honored in every honest word, every caring act, and every moment we choose each other again. It's a reminder that love is not about never falling, but about how we rise and rebuild together. The early mornings became my sanctuary. Before the world stirred and the day's demands pressed in, I found solace in quiet reflection. I'd sit by the window, a cup of coffee warming my hands, and think about the promise I had broken, not just as a failure, but as a lesson etched deeply into my heart. Each dawn brought a renewed commitment to be better, not only for him but for myself. I realized that to honor a promise is to honor the person you are becoming, even if the path is crooked and uncertain. There were days when that felt impossible, when the weight of past mistakes clouded my vision, but I learned to breathe through the uncertainty. Our conversations grew longer and more honest. We spoke about fears we had hidden for years, the fear of abandonment, the fear of never being enough, and the fear that love might not endure the test of time. Speaking these fears aloud made them less monstrous and more manageable. It built a bridge between us where walls had once stood. There were times when vulnerability spilled over into tears, mine and his, and in those moments I understood the depth of our connection. It was not a perfect love, but a love brave enough to face its imperfections and choose to stay. One afternoon, I found an old journal where I had written about that promise I made on the pier, the hopeful words, the dreams, the fear of losing us. Reading those entries was bittersweet. It reminded me of the person I was then, full of hope but unaware of the challenges ahead. I wrote a new entry that day, a promise to myself, a promise to embrace growth, to forgive mistakes, and to love with courage. It was a letter to my future self, a beacon to guide me through the shadows of doubt. We also sought moments of joy, simple pleasures that reminded us why we had fallen in love. A walk in the park, cooking a meal together, watching sunsets. These moments became anchors, grounding us amid the storms. A healing was not just about mending what was broken, but about creating something new, a love redefined by resilience, patience, and mutual respect. Our families and friends noticed the change. They saw the effort, the tenderness, and the renewed commitment. Their support was a gentle reminder that we were not alone on this journey. Yet the journey was far from over. Old habits would resurface, fears would resurge, and the shadow of the broken promise would occasionally loom. But we faced these moments with honesty and compassion, refusing to let them dictate our story. I learned that promises are living things. They grow, falter, and sometimes break, but they can also be rebuilt stronger than before. The promise I broke was a painful chapter, but it was also a turning point that shaped who I am today. It taught me about forgiveness, accountability, and the enduring power of love. As I reflect on this journey, I am filled with gratitude for the pain that led to growth, for the love that withstood trials, and for the hope that continues to light my way. This confession is a testament to the truth that love, in all its complexity, is worth every struggle. And with that truth, I step forward, promising to keep trying, to keep loving, and to keep believing. The journey through rebuilding our relationship was not just about repairing the past, it was about learning how to build something new from the ground up. We discovered that love isn't a static promise etched in stone. It's a living, breathing force that requires nurturing every day. Each small gesture of kindness, every honest conversation, was a brick laid in the foundation of our renewed commitment. There were moments of doubt, of course, times when the old fears crept back in, threatening to unravel the fragile trust we were rebuilding. I remember nights spent wrestling with the question, could I truly be the person he needed me to be? Was I strong enough to keep the promises I made, not just to him, but to myself? But in those moments, I found strength I didn't know I had. Strength born from the raw honesty of admitting my faults and the courage to face them head on. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness, but a doorway to deeper connection. I discovered that the willingness to say I'm sorry and I need help can be acts of profound bravery. Together, we navigated the complexities of forgiveness, not a single act, but a continuous process. Forgiving meant letting go of resentment and anger, yes, but it also meant embracing compassion and understanding. It meant recognizing that both of us were flawed, imperfect beings doing our best to love each other in a complicated world. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the leaves outside our window, he took my hand and said, "We're not perfect, but we're ours." In those simple words, I found peace. The acceptance that love's beauty lies not in perfection, but in persistence. Our promise, once broken, became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the fact that love can survive hardship when nurtured with care and honesty. I also learned to forgive myself fully. The weight of guilt that had once threatened to consume me began to lift, replaced by self-compassion. I realized that to love others well, I first had to love myself, even with my flaws and mistakes. The broken promise transformed from a mark of failure into a catalyst for growth. It pushed me to become more aware, more patient, and more present. It deepened my empathy, not only for him, but for all human beings struggling to love and be loved. We created new rituals, moments that grounded us and celebrated our journey. From shared morning coffees to quiet evenings talking about our dreams, these rituals were reminders of our commitment to each other and to the promise of renewal. Friends and family watched our journey with gentle encouragement. Their support was a reminder that love is not an isolated endeavor, but a shared experience woven into the fabric of community. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at the memory of the promise I once broke, not because I take the pain lightly, but because it led me to a deeper understanding of what it means to love truly. Love is not a perfect story. It's messy, complicated, and often difficult, but it's also powerful, transformative, and deeply rewarding. The promise I broke was a painful chapter, but it was not the end. It was the beginning of a new story, one of resilience, forgiveness, and unwavering commitment. And as I stand here today, I am filled with gratitude for that journey, for the lessons learned, the love regained, and the hope that carries us forward. This is my confession, a story of broken promises and healing hearts, a testament to the imperfect, beautiful reality of love. Because in the end, promises are not about never failing. They are about the courage to keep trying, to keep loving, and to keep believing in us.